So welcome everyone, and I hope everyone's having a good day so far. And let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Kate, and today I'll be helping hosting this meeting. And currently, I am a junior at Westview High School in San Diego. And today I'll just be asking questions to our amazing guests. So yeah, we'll just start with a brief introduction. So, um, is it okay if I just count to you guys off my name, and then after that you can give a brief introduction about your small background or the type of school you went to and your current major. So yeah. So can we start with Abby, please?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Abby. I went to King Crest Academy and I will be heading to CMU for college, and I am currently majoring in art, but I might consider a double major in data science or statistics.
Okay. And then Doreen.
Hey guys, my Chinese name is Li Yutian and my English name is Doreen. I went to high school at Beijing Royal School, which is a school in China, and I applied for a lot of schools and received 20 offers. And it's not until recently I decided to go to UC Berkeley. I plan to major in philosophy. I am not sure if I'm going to take a minor, which is called philosophy, politics, and law. Maybe yes, maybe no. But anyway, I plan to utilize this opportunity that an American education can give me and study more interdisciplinary subjects.
Okay, nice. And Emily?
Hi everyone, my name is Emily. I went to the Lawrenceville School, which is located in New Jersey, and next year I will be going to MIT. I'm planning on maybe studying mechanical engineering or biology. We'll see. Still not sure yet, but yeah.
Okay. And Jack?
My name is Jack Shi. I graduated from CCA this year, and I'm committed to UCLA, and my current major is mechanical engineering. How do I say that? Electrical engineering. The person before me threw me off a little bit, but I don't really have plans on switching majors, um, but we'll see.
Okay. And Kevin?
Hi, my name is Kevin Can, and I graduated from Canyon Crest Academy. I'm heading to Washington University in St. Louis, and my current major is in communication design. I don't really have any other plans to change it yet.
Okay, nice. And Lucian?
Hi, my name is Le Xuan. I just graduated from University of Nottingham studying statistics, and now I'm going to NYU studying data science.
And Peter?
Hello, I'm Peter, and I also graduated from Canyon Crest Academy. I'm heading into UC Irvine studying computer engineering, but I might switch into computer science and engineering later.
Okay, and last but not least, Ruby.
Hi, I'm Ruby. I'm from San Diego, California, and I went to Canyon Crest Academy too. And I plan on going to the University of Michigan to study business and potentially minor in data science or public policy.
Yeah, we have Andrea, Kate.
Oh yeah, sorry, and Andrea. Yeah, sorry about that.
You're good. Hi, I'm Andrea. I graduated from Del Norte High School, and I'll be attending Cornell in the fall. I'm planning to major in mechanical engineering and aerospace engineering.
Okay, nice. And before we do get started with the questions, I just wanted to, give a mention to Haddee first for, hosting for making this meeting possible. So I'll be sharing screen for a sec and doing a brief introduction about the Haddee company. So yeah. So Haddee is a company that, offers high quality tutors and college mentorship as well. They have amazing college counseling and tutoring programs, as you can see from these from the testimonies that they have. And, as a former student myself, I do find myself learning a lot from, Haddee, and not only do they help me like academically and with like, the college application process, but they also help me build my confidence as well as a student. And other than that, if you're also looking for like an internship, if you're like a current student, or if you just want to, enhance your experience, they also have like amazing internships you could apply to. For example, right now I'm doing their amazing business internship where I learn a lot, and you can really tell that Haddee is an amazing company based on their results, because every year a lot of their students end up in like really top tier like Ivy League universities and really prestigious universities. So yeah, I will check them out. You can reach out to, if you have any questions, you can reach out to Haddee or Miss Dundan via email or WeChat. So yeah. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started with the questions. Okay. All right, so the first question is, what factors helped you find, decide, and ultimately get accepted into a college that was the right fit for you? So let's start off with Abby.
Honestly, there were a lot of factors that went into this. Also, can you clarify when you're asking this question, are you asking about like before I was accepted, or like deciding which college I want to go to after I was accepted?
Yeah, so maybe both, but I've maybe like go more in depth about like before, or like how do you know like how do you go about your research to find the right college fit for you?
Yeah, of course. So when I was researching about what colleges I wanted to apply to, I really looked into the programs that they had because I was applying as an art student. So I looked into their art program, and I just based off like the rankings for their art program, I just applied to all the ones that had like really top tier art programs because I thought that was what I wanted to do. So that was pretty much just how I decided what colleges I wanted to go to. It's just based off the rankings because I didn't know that much when I was just applying to them. And then after I applied to them and then I got my acceptance letters, I started doing like more research about the universities. I started actually reaching out to the admission officers and I started to like ask them questions about like other possibilities, like maybe double majoring, like maybe the campus vibes and like just what they have to offer to us on campus. And I also joined a lot of student groups just to find out what like the students at each campus is like. And then just based off that, I decided on the one that I really wanted to go to, which is Carnegie Mellon.
Okay, nice. And then Doreen.
Oh, I just saw Mrs. Pont join the meeting. Hi, Mrs. Pont. She is a teacher who helped me a lot, thanks to her. And yeah, so first of all, I would like to talk about how I chose the colleges I applied to. It's well, on one hand, it is based on the rankings. Well, for some colleges that I like, but they do not have, I mean, that good prestige, or I mean, the comments of students and parents of those colleges are not that good. So I did not choose to apply for it. And on the other hand, it is based on like some of my preferences, like if it matches my interests, if it matches like my values. Yeah, I think value is a very important word, because I don't really like the atmosphere or the like the beliefs of many schools. For example, the Ivy schools. The Ivy schools are all some very high ranked schools, but I didn't apply for all of them. I only applied for 6, and but not for Pennsylvania and Dartmouth, because I am not very interested in their atmospheres. And when I was choosing which school I am going to, Actually, it's not based on ranking or it's not based on if it's an Ivy League because actually I got an Ivy, but I didn't choose to go there. I got Columbia, but actually I don't really like the atmosphere of New York, actually. That is. And so after 3 months of hesitation, I finally chose UC Berkeley. And many people around me are like, wow. I mean, they didn't understand me. But yeah, I think like Berkeley can offer more flexible like course options and there are more interesting professors there. And people there are also very friendly. I like the vibe of the campus. So that's why I finally chose UC Berkeley. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Nice. Okay, so what I'm hearing is like it's a lot of like geographical and just like the campus factors. So yeah. And then next, Emily.
I want to second what Doreen said here about, I think rank is somewhat important, but it definitely should not be the first thing you want to keep in mind. At the end of the day, I think choosing college is about fit. So what fits you, and sometimes it's not going to be the top ranked college. For me, I think when you select your college list of where you're trying to apply to, um, obviously have safeties, obviously have, options you can fall back on, but even within those safeties or within targets, always have schools that you think you would be happy going. Don't just apply because, oh, it's an Ivy League. Don't just apply because, oh, it's a top 20 school. Think about, will you truly be happy in that location? Will you truly be happy if it's like a urban school or if it's a much more like in a rural, middle of nowhere school? Think about if you would be happy in a big school or a small school. Obviously, sometimes it's hard to know without actually being there, without actually visiting the campus or like meeting the people. And so what kind of helped me a lot actually was talking to students, my upperclassmen who went to those schools and asking them how they feel. At the same time, do understand that everyone's experience at their school is going to be different. So again, fit is like the big word here. Some people is going to love their school, but students from the same college might hate it. So really keep those factors in mind. It's a little difficult to understand fit without being like having firsthand experience. However, I think if you do your research well enough, you can kind of get an idea of what that school is going to be like. And yeah, I really do think it's not worth your time to apply somewhere that you don't want to go to. It's not worth the money, it's not worth the effort. So really consider, hey, if I get in, do I want to go here? Will I be happy going here? So yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Sorry, Kate, seems like you didn't open your microphone.
Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, before we move on to the next speaker, I would like to clear up some misunderstandings in the chat. So for those of you asking whether we'll be able to ask questions, there will be a Q&A session towards the end. So yeah, please stay tuned. And then our next speaker, Jack.
Okay, could you repeat the question one more time? Because everyone is talking about college fit. I just want to like know what the question is exactly again.
Yeah, of course. So basically, what factors helped you find, decide, and ultimately helped you get accepted into a college that was a great fit for you?
Okay, I'm gonna go with follow up with what everyone else said and answer the question that you just repeated. Basically, when you're picking a college, whether it's picking a college to apply for or picking a college to commit to, personally, I think the number one factor is the finance aspect. How can you pay for these colleges? Like hopefully later, I'm assuming there's going to be a question about financial aid, the three different types of aid and stuff like that. And so I won't talk about that right now. But basically, when I when I was choosing to commit to a college, this was an easy decision because I only had one good choice. So I won't get into that. But when I was choosing what schools to apply for, finances was pretty much the number one thing on my list. Because when you're talking about, Emily was talking about fit and Doreen was also talking about fit. Fit is really important, and I obviously want to go to a school that I want to fit in. But part of the thing that I've noticed after doing a lot of research into schools after I committed, because I'm interested in this subject, is that most of the time where you go, it's kind of malleable. You are malleable. No matter where you choose to go, it's kind of like you're gonna fit in no matter like what, because you're going to be an adult and that's what adults do. And I know there are like some exceptions, like obviously Doreen didn't like New York. That's something that she can't change, and that's, I totally understand. Like I wouldn't want to go to someplace that's too hot. That was definitely on my mind as well. But finances is the one thing that you can't change. It's the least malleable thing. Like how much money do you have, do your parents have, or do you have, or how much money are you willing to take loans from? That's something that is very inflexible. And like the interest that keeps on compounding and how much years you have to spend on paying that off should probably be the number one thing that everyone thinks of. Um, and I'll get into that later. But moving on to the question that you're talking about, which factors help me get into college. Um, for me personally, to directly answer that question, I think it was the essays and my GPA. My extracurriculars overall, compared to my peers, the other people in this Zoom meeting, are pretty mediocre. I would say I'm probably in the bottom here. But that doesn't mean that like just because you're lacking in one thing, you can't get accepted into good colleges. Um, when you're looking at the factors that get you into college, there are infinite number of ways to get into college because there are infinite different types of people. They're you get what I mean. So basically what it boils down to are there five factors: your GPA, your standardized scores like your SAT, ACT, your essays, your extracurriculars, and finally your letters of recommendation. And there's a sixth one, which is like legacy and stuff like that. That's on the fringe, but we don't have to consider that in general. So basically, when you're looking at these five things, you kind of want to be well-rounded in everything. There's a myth that a good GPA can make up for a bad SAT score. This is not true. Like colleges look at it holistically, so you have to be good at all five things. But then generally, you want to have one or two things that really stand out. And this usually takes place in the essay or the extracurriculars, because these are the things that you have the most control over. The essays, in general, like specifically, you have the most control over because it's in the last 3 months of your application that you spend your entire life on, where you can kind of mold what you want to look like. So my final piece of advice is that when there are factors that you can use to focus on to get into college, you want to categorize them by what you have control over and what you have less control over. Less control over are your GPA and your extracurriculars, because that takes place over 4 years, and you sometimes you have a bad teacher, you get a B, it's out of your control. And your essays, you're very, very in control of it. That's why Haddee is spending this much effort to give students resources to write better essays, because you can really show you can make a big difference in just a few months. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And our next speaker, Kevin.
Hi, so I'm just gonna be pretty brief about it. So what helped me get into the college that I eventually chose was bringing it back to sort of like to what Abby said in the beginning, was since I'm a more art-focused student, I was basically just, yeah, which arts college was like the best. And I basically just looking through the list. But like somewhere I knew that I didn't want to purely do art. Like I didn't just apply to all the art schools that I saw. So I also looked at good schools that had good art programs instead of just purely being an art school. And I think what really reinforced my decision was like talking to counselors, and like how Haddee helped me with yeah, Miss Pont. She when I had meetings with her, she would talk to me, and then I feel like sure or like change my mind about something, and I felt like I wasn't unsure, because if I just decide by myself, it's kind of uncertain. And I think what was it? Okay, someone mentioned about like was it visiting a college or getting some kind of internal information about the actual college versus like just pure online rankings. Like I was accepted into RISD and I'm like, wow, that's a great art school. So in the end, I actually visited both RISD and my school, WashU, and I was more impressed with WashU's internal reputation than RISD because RISD was like everybody was overworked, it was toxic or something like that. While WashU students said that it was community driven and the student body and professors were very supportive. So I feel like that also helped influence my decision. So yeah, basically what I wanted to say was that the thing that helped me decide was what I was most passionate, which is art-based things and what I wanted out of college as an experience, not just the name or the ranking. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kevin. And then Le Xuan.
Yeah, I just talk about the graduate application. So for me, I think the first consideration should be my personal endeavors. That may include your personal GPA and also GRE scores, which really matters, and also your personal like internship experience and research. Because during your application, they really matters whether you has applied what you have learned in your undergraduate study and so the internship and the research experience is really matters. And also the publications during your research experience is also really important. So that should be the major part. But after you have received some of the offers, whether to choose the very great uni, it really depends on your personal interests. Like for me, my undergraduate major is that, so I may like to more like to choose the data science for my graduate study rather than stats because I'm totally job oriented. So the data science will be more like fit me well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Le Xuan. And then Peter.
Yeah, so for me, when I'm picking which college to apply to, I I basically just look at the rankings and I pick the schools that are ranked high. But also, I think it's important to kind of like know your own limit because for some schools, I just know that I know my kind of general level of skill and I know some of the schools, for example, a lot of the Ivies, I don't have much chance of getting into, and they usually have a lot of essays, and it's kind of like a strategic choice of which school you want to apply to, which school you know you have a good chance of getting into. So, like for example, I have like a few friends who their parents forced them to apply to all of the Ivies, that they ended up getting into none. So like that's like 50 essays written for nothing. So I feel like it's definitely important to choose the right school to apply to. And then um, yeah, except for the rankings, it's also the locations and yeah, just a lot of the stuff that previous speakers have already addressed. And yeah, I don't have too much to add on to that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Peter. And then Ruby.
Personally, when I was choosing what college to attend to, I considered career outcomes and also the culture there. For me, culture was a really big deal because I come from like a school that didn't have that much school spirit, and I was part of like ASB, which is the student body. So I was trying to encourage school spirit. So UMich thankfully has a lot of school spirit in that aspect. And also, I decided that I wanted to go into investment banking like in junior year. So I was looking at all the schools that are target schools for investment banking, and UMich was also one of them. a great way is to ask your counselor, hi Ms. Pont, about the culture at schools because they have like insight into those schools that sometimes you can't find on the websites. Like Ms. Pont, for example, she has like a lot of kids going to different schools in the US and then they report back to her about their experiences. And so she knows all of the insight and stuff like that. And also, the financial aspect is also pretty important. And after I got into, I received my acceptances from colleges. I got invited to a flying program at UMich, and then I got to experience the culture there and got to talk with a couple kids who went there. And then I thought that was the perfect fit for me.
Okay, thank you, Ruby. And last but not least, Andrea.
Yeah, okay, so I applied to all of the UCs because it's just one application for all of them. So if like the application fee isn't an issue, I would just go for all of them. And then another thing I considered when applying to schools was location. For me, I applied to a lot of schools on the East and West Coast. And then something that I noticed in high school is that I learned really well in smaller group settings. So during the application process, I tried to incorporate that by applying to a couple smaller private liberal arts schools in California, like Pomona and Harvey Mudd. And even though I didn't get into either of those, it was nice to have that as an option. And then for how I got in, I think it's because mainly my stats, essays, letters of recommendation. So basically everything other than my extracurriculars, I do think that my extracurriculars were not that extraordinary and that the other aspects of my application kind of compensated for that.
Okay. All right, thank you. And also for time's sake, for the next few questions, I'll just be asking 2 or 3 speakers because we are kind of running out of time for one question. So yeah. Okay. And the next question, what was your favorite activity or an extracurricular in high school? So this time we'll start off with Ruby.
So I played indoor volleyball and beach volleyball for all 4 years of high school, and I love that sport so much. Taught me a lot about teamwork and also time management, especially since you're like shelling out like 12 hours a week for this commitment. But college-wise, I don't think it would help me that much because there's a lot of kids doing different sports. Every high school has a ton of kids in varsity athletics too. But I'd say do it for your enjoyment, and it definitely shaped me into a better person today.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Abby?
In high school, I was in this after school program called Conservatory. It was just like basically this advanced art class for people who want to like spend more time doing art, and we had like a portfolio application thing, so you had to apply to get in, and then it's 2 hours after class every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it was really time consuming, but it was also really beneficial to me. It really helped me improve a lot as an artist. And I think I also wrote about my experiences in conservatory for one of my UC essays. So I think it's really important that like you convey what you did in high school. Like it doesn't matter what kind of activity it is, as long as like you put enough time into it and you have like something you want the admission officers to know about it, you should definitely like talk about it in your essay. Like it's not that big of a deal because like the conservatory thing, it had like 30 to 40 kids in it. So a lot of people at my school was also in conservatory with me, but that doesn't matter because not everything you do has to be like unique or like extraordinary. It can just be something as simple as like a club that you started or like a nonprofit that you joined. Like it doesn't matter what kind of activity it is, as long as you like actually spend a lot of time on it and you want to talk about it. It would all be like very good to write about in your essays.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Emily?
This wasn't my favorite, but I think I have to agree with Ruby in terms of doing sports. And do it just because you like it. I was also on varsity volleyball, and this is probably an embarrassing confession, but I was benched all season. But I loved it, even though it was a ton of time. It was like 12 hours a week, maybe even more because of games. I was, getting in daily dose of physical activity. I got to like hang out with friends, and sports is really enriching. I think never cut out sports from your life. But favorite activity? I did this thing called Lunch and Dialogue. It's definitely not the most impressive activity on my extracurricular list, but it was just so enjoyable. Basically, every Wednesday or every other Wednesday lunch, one of the teachers would order like pizza, and we all gather in like the library and watch either like a short documentary clip or like a clip from a TV show that was touching on some like social topics. So, for example, we talked about like culture and heritage and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we would have discussion about it. And I was just like one of the discussion leaders. And it was just like a super simple activity. I didn't put that much work into it, but it was very enriching. I got to spend time with people, and I think doing things that you like is important. I don't think that everything you should do should be for the purpose of getting to college. Oh, to answer the chat question, I'm from the Lawrenceville School.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. And then moving on to our next question. Did you participate in any competitions during high school? And if you did, how was your experience with that? So let's start off with Jack.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Oh, yeah, sure. So did you participate in any competitions during high school? And if so, how was your experience with it?
Yeah, I did participate in a few math competitions. I did decently well. I did the AMC 10 and AMC 12. Those are the most well-known math competitions and the most well-respected in high school. And I qualified for the American Invitational Math Examination um, 3 times, but one of them was in 8th grade. So 2 times in high school. In competitions, I would definitely say they are an important part of your extracurriculars, and they definitely help me. I don't know how much, but in basically in a short statement, competitions provide a very objective way for the admissions officers to see how good you are at something. Because if you say that you did an extracurricular of starting a club and you did these many hours helping these many people, it's hard for them to visualize or quantify it and compare you with other students. But if you do a science fair or you do a math competition or even a music competition, anything that has a competition aspect, and you say, I got to first place out of these many people, that immediately qualifies your award as something more tangible. So I highly recommend everyone who's applying to competitive colleges to have at least one or two awards in the field that you're applying for.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jack. And Andrea?
Yeah, okay, so I did this cybersecurity competition called Cyber Patriot from starting in 7th grade until 11th grade. I did pretty well in it. I think every year that I competed, it was with a team. We placed in the top 1% of like thousands of teams in the nation. And a lot of times I was in like all girls teams, so that was pretty important because it was obviously a male dominated field. I personally like wasn't something I was interested at all in. So even though that could have been something that I could write essays about, I chose not to, and I kind of just put it in as like something to have on my resume because I wasn't genuinely interested in it. But a different competition that I joined in junior was iGEM, which is the synthetic biology competition, also with a team. That was something that I was a lot more interested in. So I was a lot more involved in it, and that was something that I did end up writing about.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And Ruby?
So I competed in DECA, which is this international business competition program, and I was also the president for my school. So I loved the experience so much. The competitions were really fun, but also I think I placed first in SoCal for my event, and then I moved on to states, and which I got third, and then I got top 20 in the nation for my event, and that's just like emphasizing on what Jack said, it just helps you like quantify you in the perspective of other business applicants because with competition results, it really gives the admissions officers a solid number to kind of put you on a rank.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ruby. And Peter?
Okay, so I did not really participate in any like individual competition that kind of that can show your personal skill, but I did participate in robotics competition, its first robotics competition, and I feel like it's definitely different from a traditional like maybe math or business or biology competition where you really need a lot of knowledge to do well in. Instead, this is really about teamwork and just having fun and actually enjoying what you do. So yeah, so FRC is really time consuming. It's during build seasons, it's really time consuming. It's like 20 plus hours every week, and you just stay in the workshop and do work. But I would say this competition it's not like the other competition where the results really matter. It's more like your experience in there really matters, like what you do in there and what you produce from it. Because the I would say the results of of the robotics competition has a lot of luck in it, and it's from a team of maybe like around 80, at least for our school it was like 80 people. So it really doesn't help quantify your skill a lot, but it's really the experiences, it's what you put in there that matters for for the FRC competition.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. And then now let's move on to our next question. So this question is, did you apply to colleges through early action or early decision, ED? And if so, how was that experience for you? And do you have any tips for our audience? So let's start off with Lu Xuan.
Yes, I only take the early actions about the GRE. But my advice is just to take GRE test even earlier because it could remain for like 5 years maybe. So it is better to take GRE test as early as possible because it's really hard. And for the language test, maybe some of the students do not need them when they apply for the graduate schools. So and also for some of the graduate schools, they may have the early round. So if you apply them earlier, you could get the offer earlier. So sometimes it will be better, but sometimes you will meet many competitive persons. So sometimes you may lose these battles and you may not get the offers. But that really depends on your personal background, and yeah, that's everything.
All right, thank you, Lu Xuan. And Doreen.
Yeah, hi. First, I will answer the question if I applied for early decision and early action. Yeah, I applied for both of them. For early decision, actually, I've at first I applied for Cornell, which is an Ivy, which I think really matches my ideal. I mean, I feel like they care a lot about social responsibility. Sorry, let me. Yes, I feel like they care a lot about social responsibility, and I like the feeling of approaching the nature. So I think Cornell would be a great fit for me, but unfortunately, they didn't admit me. They refused me directly. But for my other early action schools, I got all of them. They are Rutgers, University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Southern California, and the last one is what is the last one? Sorry, I can't really remember, but at last I refused all of them. So anyway, and for standardized tests, I don't think the University of California, universities of California, they do want my standardized test scores, and I didn't quite remember if I sent my scores to them. Maybe yes, maybe no. I'm not very sure. I took IELTS and I got 8, but my SAT is not that high. It's only 1,510. It's not that high. So I guess it's probably not all schools care that much about standardized tests, and if they do not, what they care is probably more about your personal qualities. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Doreen. And we'll have our last questions before our Q&A session. So we'll move on to our next question for now. Okay, so the question is, if you could go back and do the high school process over again, what would you change? And this can be like habits, your social life, and et cetera, et cetera. So we'll start off with Kevin.
Yeah, okay. So I think the most common thing that I'd say people would say was just starting to consider college applications earlier. So, you get a head start in applying. But in the beginning of junior year, I was like, it's a college. So anyways, if I think I had to start over, I would start applications earlier. And more importantly, I think I would take more extracurricular chances earlier as well, like starting a club, because I think me personally starting a club was like the best thing I ever did. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And Emily?
This is a hard question. I think for me, I want to touch a little bit more on the social aspect. I think starting early for college is a great idea. I know there are freshmen out there who are like starting their own clubs, but I do believe that you should not do things purely for college. If anything, I think that often has the opposite effect, as in colleges really like when you're authentic. Sometimes you can fake authenticity, but it's just better to be true to yourself. And so if you do things that you actually find interesting, and find fun, you're gonna have a much better time. You're more likely to commit to it. And also, I think for the most part, colleges can see who's being authentic and who's doing stuff to get into colleges. But in that kind of idea, be open to people you meet, be open to things to do. Obviously, sometimes say no if you don't want to do it really. But like for me, one of the best things was joining rocketry club. I had no interest in aerospace engineering. I had no interest in rockets, but I just like, why not join it? And I joined my sophomore year and it's been a blast. Love the team, love doing it, even though I still won't do anything related to rockets in the future, I don't think. It was just so fun, and it was all because I was just open to this random new club. But yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Emily. And Abby?
If I could go back to high school, I would definitely relax a lot more. Like honestly, this whole college application process really taught me that college app, it isn't just about all your stats. Like it doesn't matter if you have a 4.0. In fact, if you only have a 4.0, you're not gonna stand out. People are just gonna think you're just another one of the nerds. Like you don't really have anything particular special about you. That was kind of what I did in high school. I was so stressed about my grades. Like I would literally cry whenever I have a test tomorrow. And the high school I went to was also like really competitive and like really hard. And like I remember for my calc class, I was like literally crying because I didn't know how to do one of the questions. I was crying. I was thinking, oh my God, it's over for me. I'm gonna get a B in calculus. If I get a B in calculus, it's basically over. I'm not gonna get it anywhere. Like that was how bad it got for me. But really, GPA, it is important, but it's not the most important factor. Like it really doesn't matter if you have a 3.9 something. Like sure, it might not look as good as if you had a 4.0, but at the end of the day, it's just a number. It doesn't really define you. I think at high school, you should really be relaxing more and doing more extracurriculars other than just focusing solely on your grades, because you are more than just a number, and colleges will see that. So really just relax more and try to do more stuff. Really enjoy your time in high school. Don't just focus on studying and try to get all A's, because sometimes it's not worth it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Abby. And since we're past the point of 15 minutes before the meeting about ends, we'll start our Q&A session now. So everyone can openly ask questions in the chat, and I can help read them out loud, and we'll have our guest speakers answer them. So yeah. Okay, so there's one for Kevin. What motivates you on a daily basis?
Oh boy, what motivates me on a daily basis? This one's a hard question. I guess the prospect of like talking to people, or like getting to so this is kind of hard to explain, but like I guess I'm motivated by showing people what I make. So I guess I like to draw every day, and then I like to hang out with my friends and then talk to them about art. So yeah, that's what I'm motivated by. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
great.
hard question, sorry.
Oh, good. And what advice would you guys have for writing personal statements and supplemental essays? So anyone can go ahead and answer this. Okay, since Lu Xuan, you're an international student, why don't you go ahead and answer this? Because I know it's different for a lot of international students.
Sorry for what question?
Oh yeah, so basically, what advice would you have for people who are writing like their personal statements and supplemental essays and the essays in like the application process?
Okay. I think for graduate application, the personal statement is all about your internship and research experience. The things about my personal life is very like limited. But for the supplemental essays, it is also about why you choose these majors, how your personal life has some impact on your final decisions. So it is more like about your personal majors in your undergraduate studies. So because my major in my undergraduate is the stats, so I was mostly about the biostats and the stats and the data science, and it's all about these three kind of areas. So yeah, I think it's quite different from the undergraduate applications.
Okay, great. All right, and then for the other questions, you could just like openly answer them, whether that's through like the text, or whether that's through chat, or you could just like talk about them openly. But I also forgot today's meeting actually ends around 7:30. So since we already touched on Q&A, we'll just continue for the Q&A for a bit, and then we'll ask like some more general questions. So yeah. Okay.
So I think the question coming, what's the good application deadline, application timeline for essays? Who would want to take?
I can answer this one.
Go ahead.
So, I work with Mrs. Anton, and I really a big supporter of the schedule that she helped me create, which was from starting in May. Not really, because I just started to know her in May, but starting in June to through July, the first thing I did was figure out which schools I want to apply to, because obviously you need to know what schools you need to write essays for. And then starting in late July to August, I wrote my first draft of my Common App statement first. And the first essay that you write will always take the longest. So don't be discouraged when you spend 2 weeks fleshing out an essay that you still feel isn't that great. And you feel like, oh, this is going to take so long. Oh, it took me 2 weeks to write my first essay. But your skills going to improve. So you're going to write faster. And also you'll have the opportunity to reuse essays. So by the time school starts in mid-August for American high school students, usually you should have at least your Common App statement drafted, not finished, but like have a draft ready, and maybe one or two supplemental essays. And then starting from as soon as school begins until whatever deadlines you have, whether it be November 1st, November 30th, or January 1st, just write a minimum of 30 minutes a day, like every single day. Because the key is consistency. When you're constantly thinking about your essays, you're really going to be living in them. You're going to start to have a feeling of like, this essay is actually a part of me. I know what every single direction of how this essay could be interpreted. So if you write a minimum of 30 minutes every day, I guarantee you will be able to finish all your essays on time, especially if you start in August.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jack. And we have another question in the chat for Ruby. Basically, could you share more about your DECA experience and why do you like it?
Yeah, so I think I answered in the chat, but if you would like me to answer again, which one do you prefer, Kate?
Oh, maybe just other than DECA, like your experience with DECA and like business extracurriculars. So any tips?
Okay, with business extracurriculars, I interned at Haddee for a business analytics internship, and that spanned over 2 months, 3 months, and that taught me a lot about the technical side, like the more STEM side of business, using like coding such as like SQL, R, Tableau, and all that stuff, and that really helped me, I think, in the application process. And let me think. I took all the business CTE pathway classes that were offered to me at my school, and that I started my own business with jewelry, which I love it. Yeah, I love combining fashion and business, and that's something I wrote in my essays as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ruby. And okay. Oh yeah, and since Emily got into Harvard and Princeton and a lot of really prestigious schools, what advice would you have for like writing personal statements and supplemental essays for Emily?
I kind of already answered this in chat, but I think that genuinely writing college essays is like a skill. College essays are going to be kind of different from any other essay you write because it's kind of like bragging, but very indirectly and also like trying to be likable. I know that the first few essays I wrote were kind of bad. For context, I applied REA to Stanford and got rejected. And I think it's because my first few essays weren't that great. But that's because it takes practice. And I know that my later essays, as I kept writing them, I kept coming up with better ideas or better ways to talk about my ideas. Another thing I think is when it comes to like revising, I personally talked to a lot of different people for like I had a lot of people look over my personal statement and ask them for advice. And you're gonna hear stuff you won't like. You're also gonna hear stuff that you like. I think one thing you have to keep in mind is it's a personal statement. It's you. And ultimately, like you have to make the decision about whether to make this change or not. Some people may give you advice that to use and it will be really good advice, and some people will give advice that's not that good. So, but I think it's better to like just ask around more because that way you have that feedback in the first place. And otherwise, yeah, just it takes time, unfortunately. There's no easy way to do it other than practice and write a lot.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. And Okay, so here's a question from Min. So in general, how much time commitment do you guys recommend to make room for extracurricular activities? And starting from G9, I'm assuming freshman year. So Abby, would you like to answer this?
Sure. So in my freshman year, I believe that was during COVID. So I'm not gonna lie, I actually don't have any extracurriculars that was from my freshman year because it was during COVID. I couldn't really do anything. Honestly, the most I did was probably just doing like this small internship that I did for a company. I was working as like a customer service intern. And then I did that for 1 year, and then when we got back to school, that was when I started getting more engaged in high school activities. I like joined clubs, started clubs. I joined nonprofits, and I joined conservatory, and then I also did a couple of other internships during the summer. And if you can, I would definitely say the longer that you have the activities, the better. Like I think one of my longest activities I had was like this design internship I had. I did it for 3 years from my sophomore year to my senior year. And then other than that, conservatory, which I already talked about, which was really time consuming, 6 hours per week, and I did that for 2 years. And then other than that, I also have like some other small clubs that I did either starting from junior year, sophomore year, and one senior year, which I also put in like 2 to 3 hours weekly into them. But I would say extracurricular wise, if you want to do something, make sure that you like really invest in it. Like, don't just do something because you think it will look good to colleges. Like, even if it's something that's like really prestigious, if you just do it for like 3 months, it's not gonna look that good. Like really, I think depth matters more than width. Like, if you're gonna do something, just give it your all. Don't like do it for a while and then decide, oh, I'm gonna give up. I'm just gonna do something else because I think this activity isn't that prestigious or it won't look that good to colleges. Like really find something that you like doing and just stick with it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Abby. And here's another question, and it's also a really general, like really popular question too. So the question is, do any of you have a scholarship? And if so, can you like share experience and tips for applying for it? So
I feel like I'd like to answer this question.
go ahead.
So obviously paying for college is a huge deal. And scholarships are a great way to relieve some of that stress. So basically I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and talk about paying for college in general. When you're paying for college, there are three types of aid that you can get to help you pay for your college that are no strings attached. So I'm not including loans, obviously. The first one is a need-based financial aid, which is completely dependent on your FAFSA and your family's financial situation. And this is entirely out of your family's control. It's just how much assets you have, what your family income is, how many siblings you have, and how many of your parents are working, for example. This you just have to fill out honestly and send it to the federal government, and then they'll give you money, no questions asked. In most cases, as long as you do it honestly, obviously, and then you get money and it's free. So take it. Always do the FAFSA. And I'm talking about domestic students. If you're international, it's a little bit different, but we're all probably domestic here. Um, I'll touch on that later. The second one is a merit-based scholarship, which is when you win a competition. For example, you win ISEF and they give you $55,000, no strings attached. Basically, you do something exceptional or you do something that you apply for a scholarship like the Coca-Cola scholarship or the Taco Bell scholarship. And these are extremely hard and very competitive because it's just free money that kids are applying for. And this takes a lot of your time. So usually only the most competitive and the most driven students will apply for these as high schoolers. And third is discount-based merit aid, which is there are thousands of colleges in this country, and we mostly focus on the most prestigious ones, but they don't really have to worry about getting funding because they have huge endowments usually, and they have a lot of students that are willing to pay for them. But the fact is, this is the top 1% of colleges. The rest, they don't have as much money. So what they do is they understand that a private school in rural Pennsylvania won't have enough, prestige to allure kids to pay $70,000 a year to go to them. So they will generally discount the money a little bit. And a cynical way of thinking about it is like, what is the least amount of money that we can give to a family so that they are incentivized enough to pay for whatever is remaining to come to our school? It's kind of it's a little bit, it's very controversial, and there's a lot of legislation that is actively going against it. But generally, when you apply for out-of-state schools, for example, Case Western Reserve is a good example of a private school in Ohio that's very generous with this discount-based merit aid, where they give students more money to try to incentivize them. This is also out of your control, but it's important for you to be able to distinguish from aid that you get for being a good student and aid that you get because this college really wants your money. And then now to answer back to the original question, what are the best ways to apply for scholarships? Now, this question obviously is referring to the second type of aid, which is merit-based aid. I would say the best way to apply for scholarships is directly through your school. So whenever you, whatever school you choose to commit to, I guarantee you they'll have a huge financial aid and like scholarships department, and they will have just a mind-boggling amount of scholarship applications, and they neatly package it all for you. So I would say when you're a high school applicant, you're applying as a senior to get into college, don't worry too much about getting scholarships, because it's a better use of your time to focus on your application. Unless you're like, if you're really driven and you have the time, then yes, of course, by all means, apply for those Taco Bell and Coca-Cola scholarships. But the best 99% of students, when they get to committed to a college, they will have their college give them a list of scholarships, and you could apply for that. And it's less hassle. It's less hassle. It's more streamlined, and it's just generally a simpler way to apply for scholarships. So I hope that answers your question.
I can also answer a question. So, I am attending Michigan on 3 different scholarships. So, the first one was that I applied to Michigan, and then with my acceptance, they just gave me a half ride. And also, the summer before senior year, I applied to this San Diego City Council internship / scholarship. So while my time is like, I spend my time volunteering at San Diego City Council, they provide a scholarship to my future college that I will be attending. And lastly, is another application-based scholarship. The Michigan has a lot of alumni clubs across the world, and that for the San Diego branch, they were offering applications out to different kids who are going to attend to University of Michigan, and I applied to that and got it too. So definitely look into, once you're accepted into college, definitely look out to like the different resources for specific kids going to that college around your city, or maybe like even just directly applying from the university, and those help a lot.
Yeah, very good, Ruby. I put a note. Yeah, Cornell also has, it's hard to get it. So congratulations. It's 1 per year. So for freshmen, yeah. The alumni scholarship. Very good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jack and Ruby. And yeah, so here's a question. How important is it for having extracurriculars that relate heavily to your intended major? So how about Andrea? You can talk about more about your cybersecurity extracurriculars and whether that made a difference on the resume.
Okay, yeah. I think it definitely helps because it shows that it shows concrete interest in your major and that you're already doing stuff relating to your major. But for me, this was something that was really stressful going into the process because I was applying mechanical engineering or aerospace engineering, and a lot of my extracurriculars had nothing to do with that. Like I did a bio thing, cybersecurity. I had a job as a math tutor, and then also I was doing our school's literary magazine. So I think my extracurricular were kind of all over the place. So I definitely don't think it's 100% necessary. Like you can take stuff that you've learned from these other extracurriculars and still show how you've grown as a person in those essays. And for me, even though I didn't have extracurriculars that related to aerospace and like mechanical engineering, I talked about this in another reply that I did. but I drew upon other experiences like projects that I did in my physics class. So at the end of the year, we had this really cool project where we built like a boat out of wood, and we had actual students get into the boat and they would go across the pool. And I talked about why that was like a really cool project and why that made me interested in engineering. So yeah, even if you don't have extracurriculars that perfectly align with your major, I think it's okay. You can still choose to write about other stuff and make it work.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrea. And another question is, what part of your application do you think mostly got you into your committed school? So why don't we have Peter answer this?
So I would say my strongest part of my application is probably my extracurriculars because I do not have a perfect GPA and I did not I don't think my essays are like the top notch, but I think I have solid extracurricular. So yeah, I think extracurricular is definitely the part that you can include a lot of information from like how much from your area of interest to how dedicated you are. I feel like colleges really can learn a lot about you in your extracurriculars. And yeah, so I did for my extracurricular, I did robotics. That's like my biggest the thing that I spent the most time on. It's like maybe like at least 10 hour every week. And then I also did art, which is not really relevant to the major I applied to, but it's something that I find that's basically my passion. Like I like to draw, so it's kind of like a fun thing to do for me. That um that also happens that I can just also kind of conveniently write it on my application. So that's another thing. And then I did some internships and a lot of the other standard stuff that a lot of people do, like volunteering and yeah, some sports.
Hmm. Okay, great. Thank you, Peter. And for the sake of having more representation, how about Lu Xuan, since she is an international applicant, it may be different for international applicants in the audience. So how about you give your take on the question about what part of your application do you think mostly helped you get into your committed school?
I think the first one is of course the GPA because my GPA is like 3.9 over. So that should be the initial part. And for the other part, maybe the extracurriculars like the internship. I have two internship. One is about biostats and one is about the stats. And I have also have two research experience. One is about heart rate measurements. But the part I did is about data management. And for another one is about wireless communication. I also doing the data part, which helped me have experience something about the data science part maybe. So that should be the major part help me get to the community school.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Okay, so since we already like about I think 20 minutes passed, we'll resume to some of the general questions. So yeah. Okay. So the question is if oh sorry. Hold on. Okay. All right. So how important is the GPA in the college admissions process based on your own experiences or what do you for yourself? So how about we start with Jack, since you did mention that GPA did help you a lot for your college application?
Yeah, so I'm going to speak on the UCs because that's what I have the most experience with, and that's the one I got into. And I'd also like to point out that I got extremely fortunate. I'm very grateful that I was accepted to UCLA because I was not accepted to a single private school, and I applied to quite a few. And my out-of-state acceptances were extremely underwhelming, to say the least. So I don't know exactly, this is most likely just a coincidence, but it really made me kind of think about what I did differently for my UCs because I got into every single UC except for the worst one, which is obviously UC Berkeley. So I'm sorry, go Bruins. Okay, so like obviously I did something different or there's something that made my UC stand out. And the number one thing that I like to point out is probably GPA is the most important by far for your UCs. Like I would say if I could quantify it, which is a very poor way of like how explaining it, but it's good for you to understand. I would say that your GPA is worth like 70% of your applications for the UCs, especially for your major. Like when you apply for a major for a UCs, I would highly recommend you go to the UC website. For example, let's say UC Irvine. You go to UC Irvine's website, and then let's say you're Peter and you're applying for computer engineering. You look at the distribution, the 20th, the median, and the 75th percentile for computer engineering at UC Irvine, and you kind of gauge yourself like how good of you are a student compared to the kids that actually got into your major. And if you're below the 25th percentile, it's unfortunately it is probably a tall order for you to get into that school. So I'm very convinced that Peter is probably in the 75th percentile or higher because we both go to CCA, which is a very competitive public school. Personally, I was exactly on the 75th percentile of my major. So as a general rule of thumb, because we all live in a quite affluent zip code, and that's going to affect our application in for UCs. I won't get more into that. You, as a general rule of thumb, a 75th percentile is a pretty good spot to be at. If you're above that, you can be confident. If you're 50th percentile, it's probably a reach. And then second of all, I would say of the remaining 30%, about 20% comes down. Okay, let's say 15. I'm going to be a little more conservative. 15% is down to your essays because the UCs are extremely holistic. They look at your essays and they really want to know what type of person you are. And there's a myth that goes around that's like, oh, colleges only care about what you can contribute to the school, like how good of you, objectively how good of a student you are. This is completely false. Colleges care about your personality. They very much care. If in your essays you sound like a total jerk, they will definitely consider that. So don't think that just because you are one of the smartest kids in your school, you sound like a jerk on your essay, they'll write that off. Because what they want is they want to choose kids that will make their school feel better, may be a better campus, be a better environment overall. So your personality and what type of person you are really is super important that it comes through your essays. And then the rest is the 15%. It feels low, right? Most people are like, whoa, extracurricular is only 50% of your application. I'm gonna explain myself here. Your extracurriculars are kind of are mostly out of your control. Like this sounds weird, but when you're doing your extracurriculars, like we have to admit, like some people are more privileged than others. Like some people have opportunities to make clubs and go do this, go do that, do horseback riding, do archery, do competitions. Like if my sister does ping pong and I'm kind of like there's so many competitions that you have to go across the country to compete in. Like not everyone can just do it. So your extracurriculars, it really boils down to how well you do in the context of your environment. And also your extracurriculars are kind of it kind of pairs into with your essays. So your extracurriculars and your essays are very melded into each other when you apply because your essays will really be expounding what you did on your extracurriculars. Someone asked me in the chat, or someone asked in the chat what the best extracurricular is, and I will defend that the best extracurricular is the one where you truly love it and you can convince people that you love it. Because when your essays are basically explaining why you love what you do. So your essays are even more important than your extracurriculars, I would admit. That's why I was kind of hesitant to say 20% essays and 10% extracurriculars. I'll give it half, 15 and 15. I hope that that's for UCs, specifically for UCs. Okay. So I just want to finish on that note. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jack. And Emily?
I think I agree with Jack that it depends on colleges. Like some colleges will care more, some will not. I think it tends to be true that more public state colleges care a little bit more about GPA than like private liberal arts. For me, that feels true at least in terms of like the outcomes of mine. I do have a pretty good GPA in the context of my school. And you can't say it doesn't help. I don't know what percentage it matters though. But here's the thing. I think that if your GPA is really good, it really is about balance, right? Because you can't just have a really good GPA and expect to get in everywhere. you need really good extracurriculars and really good GPAs. But if like one is, say like I have not that great of a GPA, but I have really good extracurriculars, that's gonna also work out. Or the other way around. I think these days it's more like I see a more bigger focus on extracurriculars and essays and like other parts other than GPAs. But yeah, having a good GPA really does help.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. And Kevin?
So yeah, I think GPA does matter. It's very important in the regard that a higher GPA represents like your overall vigor in high school, which basically shows colleges how hard you work, and that's pretty important. But I think it also depends on how you look at it. If you're like sacrificing your entire life for 2 AP classes and nothing else to bring your GPA up above a 4 and ditching like what you're actually passionate about, I think that would end badly. And so also prioritize, making friends, like connections and also extracurriculars. Yeah, so you should try to enjoy yourself in high school, not just sacrifice yourself to the GPA gods. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Kevin. And our next question will be a very general one and a very popular one as well. So while you were deciding on which college fits for you, how did you decide that you were either going to attend like a public versus a private university? So we'll start off with Abby.
Okay, I'm sorry, just to repeat the question, it's about choosing between private colleges and public colleges, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so honestly, I think one of the biggest pros of going to a public university is the tuition. Like for the UCs, if you're from in-state, I believe the tuition is only about 40K. 30 to 40K, I think, something around that. But if you're going to a private university and if you don't get any financial aid, you're gonna have to pay about 90K out of pocket just for that. So the tuition is definitely I think it's definitely a privilege to be able to go to a private university without any financial aid. And that's the case for me. I'm heading to Carnegie Mellon, and unfortunately, my family did not qualify for any financial aid, so I will be paying the full tuition all 4 years. And I did get into a lot of the UCs. I got into all the UCs except LA and Berkeley, and I was really debating between whether going to UCSD or going to Carnegie Mellon because both UCSD and Carnegie Mellon, I think they're both top 30s. And my parents honestly really liked UCSD. UCSD is really close to where I live. I've been on UCSD campus a lot of times. So it was really a hard choice to make. But honestly, what really made me choose CMU is just the fact that CMU is much better STEM-wise. I mean, obviously UCSD is also a really good STEM school, but CMU, it's like really good, especially for comp sci. So it's probably better if I go there just so I can, get in on the AI rush because that's what everyone talks about nowadays. And another thing is that since my family, like my parents, I'm really grateful for the fact that they're willing to pay the tuition for me. And they said that like the money will not be a problem, so I don't have to worry about it. And another thing is that for private schools, you're gonna have a much smaller class size and you will probably have less issues with wait lists and wanting to like take classes just because of the school size. And it's probably better to go to a private school if you have the financial ability to pay for the tuition and you are considering graduate school because at private school, it's much easier to, really get to know your professors and ask them for a letter of rec when you're applying to grad schools. But if money is like a big issue for you, then I would definitely consider going to public school just because it's much cheaper that way. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Abby. And Andrea?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Abby said. Tuition is such a big consideration, and especially for students in California. The UCs obviously have such a great in-state tuition that's an option. For me, what I liked about private schools was that there's more flexibility with like changing majors. So I'm going into the College of Engineering like undeclared, and even though I applied as a mechanical engineering major, we don't actually affiliate with the major until sophomore year. And so I'm not like 100% sure that this is what I want to do for the next 4 years. And so for someone like me who's maybe not completely sure yet, I think having the resources and the flexibility to be able to change major if that's what I want to do, and having that option was really nice for me. And yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for our last 8 minutes, I think we will spend the rest 7 minutes actually continue our Q&A session because it seems that people do have a lot of questions to ask still. So yeah. All right, so one question is how important are the AP scores? So that's a common one that generally gets asked during these webinars. So Peter, could you give like, your experience with that?
Okay. So the AP scores, the scores themselves, I would say it's definitely not the biggest impact of the decision that the college make. It's more important to like for getting for getting college credits. So like the whole point of AP actually is to get college credit in high school. So I would say I don't even know if all the schools even look at the AP scores. So I would say for some schools they probably do matter. I'm not sure which, but it's definitely not the biggest factor for college admission. Also, it's not. I don't think it is mandatory to report all of your scores. So if you do not want to report one of your scores, it's totally fine to do so.
Okay, thank you. And Emily, did you think that it helped you, like AP scores helped you with like, getting your classes like in college and stuff like that?
Unfortunately, MIT, except for the English lit or language that helps you get you don't have to do this thing during the summer. They don't take any other AP credits. So yeah, keep that in mind. Some colleges do accept AP credits, some accept some of them, and some don't at all. In terms of getting into college, for me, my school wasn't an AP school. I still took 4, but that was only because I guess I wanted to, just for the credits. And I think it ranges. Like some schools are AP schools and therefore it matters a little bit. But for me, I think I know that as long as you take like hard classes, most schools have a system of telling like colleges what classes are hard. For me, it was like honors classes are like the hard classes, and that was how I guess colleges would differentiate between what courses I was taking. But yeah, I think do keep in mind sometimes colleges don't take AP credits.
Okay, great, thank you. And another question asked by iPad is that can any of you talk about college tour? What is the best time to do like college tour? So Ruby, I know you live in San Diego, so unlike your colleges like being like in your town or like in your state, your college is all the way in Michigan, so like the other end of the country. So could you tell us a bit about like how about like your touring experience like in University of Michigan and yeah.
Yeah, so I think I went on 2 like sets of college tours. I think over the summer before college applications, I toured the colleges in like the tri-state area, East Coast. And then spring break of junior year, I toured like the Midwest colleges, and that's when I toured the University of Michigan. And I think I did a registered tour with the school, and I think that registering your tour shows demonstrate interest, and it helped on my application to University of Michigan. But I'm not sure how much it helped on other schools that don't take demonstrate interest that seriously. But otherwise, it did help me write my essay and also help me narrow down which schools I wanted to apply to. There were some schools that I toured that I thought of applying that I didn't want to apply anymore after I toured the school because I didn't like their culture or their campus. But University of Michigan is one of the schools that I kept on my list, and then I wrote about some details I had on the tour in my essays, which I think reflected positively to the missions officers.
Okay, great. Thank you. And next we'll have like from an international student point of view. So I know like you're an international student, so um you might like not have as much access to, schools in the States. So did you tour like any colleges? And if so, what was your experience like being like an international student? Oh, Lucian, sorry.
Actually, I did not have any tour to the unis I applied for. I just I consider more about the majors and something related to my future jobs, something like that. So the campus life is not that important to me. So I, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's valid. And another question is that how many schools do you recommend applying to? And based on your experiences, Jack, could you give us a bit like of your experience?
Sure. So I've actually thought about this and discussed this with a lot of people. Generally, people recommend that you start with two safeties, maybe three, given this college economy, but generally two, three targets, and then three reaches. And then once you got your core selection down, then you just start building onto it. Basically, as many as you can do, especially if it's a STEM or impacted major. And when I say as many as you can do, I don't mean like literally like max out your common app to have 20 colleges and then go to the coalition and then max that out as well. I mean, like as many as you can feel that you can pump out quality essays. So when I was talking about earlier, where I was saying minimum 30 minutes of writing essays a day, you really have to do some mental math or some actual math and take out a piece of paper and kind of calculate. Generally, it takes about 5 hours to create a polished essay on average. So when you do the math, how many days is that you have to take and how many essays you have per college? And then do this as early as possible because a lot of kids just say, I'm going to apply for 25 schools and they don't actually do the math. They just feel like they just throw themselves at it like a leap of faith. And then they inevitably have to drop colleges. My advisor, Mrs. Anton, and I did the planning really thoroughly. So I didn't have to drop any colleges and I ended up applying to 22 if you count all the UCs as one. So if you count all the UCs separately, it's like what, 28 colleges. It was a lot, but because with correct planning, you can do more. So start off with it. And here's one more tip, a little bit of unsolicited advice. I was kind of unconfident when I was choosing colleges to apply for, and I chose way too many safeties, in my opinion. So I got a lot of acceptances that ended up not really exciting me anymore. Like I was just getting into colleges that I didn't really know why I applied for and wrote essays for. So the two or three safeties is a good rule of thumb. And by the way, you have to define safeties as a college that has like a 90% acceptance rate or more for you. Like SDSU is not a safety. Like I'm just gonna put that out there. SDSU has a 30% acceptance rate. In no world is that a safety, no matter how good you are. So that's all.
Okay, great. Thank you. And since it's already 7:30 and the meeting is scheduled to end here, thank you so much to our speakers. And again, please give us a great review on Google if you really like the event hosted by Haddee. And Ms. Dandan did also link the contact info, the email and the phone, the WeChat ID in the chat as well. So if you would like to get into contact with them, more information or questions about the company, please feel free to do so. And yeah, I'm going to hand it back to Ms. Dandan if you would like to have anything more to say.
Oh, thank you so much, Kate, and all the speakers, all the parents and students. Really appreciate it. It's right on time, and we're going to end here. However, the speakers, would you please stay for 2 minutes so we can finalize the schedule, okay? Thank you all, and enjoy your Sunday night. Thank you.